Right, over to you, Marcus.
I can't see anybody, Natalie, so you'll have to tell me if someone's asking to speak, okay?
I will do.
Right, thank you. Right, before the meetings, we allow members of the public to speak on any of the items on the agenda. Are you all going to be speaking on the same item or different items?
I'm going to be speaking on the subject of Lloydbeg, which is the reference WD 2021-042, sorry, 0422.
Yeah, 6.1, yeah.
Yes.
Is everybody else going to be here?
Yeah, Tim's going to kick us off, and then I'm going to follow him. And I think it's the two of us.
So everybody is in attendance for that item, and it's the two of you that are going to be speaking as representatives. Is that right?
I believe so.
Yes. Lovely. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Okay. All right. Well, if you'd like to kick off then and let us know your views, please.
Yes, thank you, Marcus. Yes, so I did submit a letter. My name's Tim Scott, here with my wife, Catherine. We live at Weald House on Causley Road, which is in the same cul-de-sac as the planning application. As I say, I did submit a letter on behalf of some of the residents here, and of some kind of trust you've kind of read that as part of the review items. I'm not going to go through the letter, but I'd like to just focus on three of the objections, which I'll really just bullet point rather than go into any specific discussion. So my first objection is that actually it is outside the development boundary. As you know, we are an area of outstanding natural beauty, and despite the planning application suggesting that it's a private garden development, the area that the house is proposed to be developed is actually designated agricultural land. So that's kind of the main point of our first objection. The second objection is an environmental. Along with the letter, I submitted a map which represented the source protection zones, the water zones, and the development would be directly on an area that is covered by Zone 1, the inner protection area, which would obviously have a significant impact on not only surface water, but also drainage, and particularly potential pollutants would be increased as a risk. As of the waste management of the proposed development. So the second objection is an environmental objection. And the third one, which I'll focus on quickly, is also safety and traffic. As you know, this part of Causley Road, where there is no paved area, is heavily used by walkers, cyclists, horse riders indeed, it seems more and more, but also school children going to the tan yard. We've actually noticed a significant increase in that traffic because of the pandemic. I know the pandemic will not last forever, but it's a highly utilised area. And I think any increase in car traffic, which would ultimately arise from this development, and indeed any other development of this part of Causley Road, will reduce the utility to the villagers of this kind of private highway, or this public highway rather. So the third objection is around safety and traffic, and I'll just focus on those three: outside development boundary, environmental, and the safety and traffic argument. And I'd like to hand over to Mark, if I may.
Okay, hi, good evening. My name is Mark Powderham.
Sorry, if I could just stop you. Marcus, did you have a question for Tim?
Yeah, does anyone have a question for Tim first of all?
No.
So I just ask one thing. Are you saying that it's private, the access, or it's public?
Sorry, I mixed my language. Causley Road is obviously a public highway, but actually the road that the development is on is a private road. The road is actually owned by one of the residents who's actually not on the call today. I know he attempted to get onto the call. So it is a private access, most certainly.
So they'd have to actually negotiate that anyway, wouldn't they? So
they would, exactly.
Marcus, may I ask Tim then, because one of the reasons, maybe it wasn't in your letter, but there is no permitted access to the site. So there's permitted access to all the houses, but not specifically to that piece of land. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We're endeavouring to get hold of all the deeds so we can analyse that a little bit further. But our assumption is exactly right. There's quite a big feature within the application around the availability of utilities, water, electricity, telecoms. But actually, that would need to be put into place for this new housing this new dwelling,
and agreed by all of you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it would actually, I know it's not a planning issue, but it would require an adjustment to the deeds of all the households within the close.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just for reference, that the waste management is a building control issue as opposed to a planning issue.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Thanks for that clarity, Marcus.
Okay, if we want to go.
Okay, hi, good evening. Yes, my name's Mark Powderham. I'm here with my wife Tess. We live in Springbank, which is the property adjacent to where the new build would take place on the orchard. We're not the only ones who would be impacted by the bill, but we are right next door to where it would go up. I'm just going to focus on two things. One is, we mentioned in the letter to you that there are a range of inaccuracies in the application that we just want to draw to your notice. I'm not going to go through them blow by blow because there's quite a lot of them and we've articulated them in the letter, but I will highlight 4 of them. And then I'll also, my second point will just be around what we believe is a sort of a lack of effort in the design to sort of minimise the impact of that design, both on the neighbouring properties, including ours, but also on, frankly, the visibility of the new build from southern aspects for walkers and so on, because it is visible. So the points I want to just raise about the inaccuracies, and you'll no doubt have sort of seen them for yourselves. Tim's already referenced that there's a lot of reference to garden in the application, and we would very much like to re-emphasise that it isn't garden currently. It's classified as agricultural land. The visibility point, the application makes a statement that the property is concealed by trees when you view from the footpaths to the south. Actually, that very much depends where you choose to stand and take that look. There are many places on those southern paths where it's perfectly visible, and we would suggest that when you build a larger property, because the current property is a bungalow, when you build a larger property and you build it a little bit further south and on slightly higher ground, it will be even more visible than the property that's there today. There's a strange statement in the application which says that the sort of efforts have been made to site the building on the west side of the plot to avoid being up too tight against Springbank and where we are, but actually the drawings show exactly the opposite. The property is clearly located on the east side of the plot. So it's just an obvious point. And then you'll have read the item about the build being within 750 metres of a train station. I don't think any of you would have for one moment thought that was anything other than the Spa Valley line, which doesn't get you particularly far in either direction, and isn't really a link into the public transport network. So hopefully that will get sort of disregarded really as a bit of a throwaway fact. Yeah, just in terms of minimising the impact of the property, I think the thing that surprises us in particular, of course, we don't want it to go ahead at all, but what surprises us about the design that's being put forward is it makes no attempt, if you like, to reduce the impact of the build by sitting it a bit lower into its site. We know full well, because this property is very much dug into its plot. So we descend off the road into our driveway and drop a good metre or more to this house. And then when you step out the back of this house, you're very much at ground level. If you look at the drawings closely for the proposed build, the complete opposite is true. It picks the highest northwest corner of the plot, takes that as its ground floor level, and builds up and outwards, both sort of south and east. So it's very much flies out above the ground level with steps at the rear to get you back down to sort of ground level at the back. So that strikes us as not particularly helpful in terms of minimising the impact both to neighbours, and that's not just us, that's also the people, you know, Joe and others who live opposite, for whom that'll be a bigger thing. But also, again, from the viewpoint from the south, you know, again, if you make no attempt to, or if you set the property as high as possible on the plot, clearly there's a bigger impact than if you could dig it in and sink it a bit lower. So those were the couple of points I wanted to make.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, presumably, if they haven't got any access, you can, all of you who don't want it, can stop it being built. Because if you won't give them access, they can't build it.
Well, we are waiting to read the deeds which I've applied for from Land Registry of Louisbeg. And until we actually see that, we can't confirm that. Our neighbour thinks that he has limited right of access, but we have to be sure.
I know a bit about access. It's really important to make sure the deeds, we've had a problem and we've had to go to a barrister to prove that we have, you know, the person doesn't have the access. So it's very important, because if you've got it, but they haven't got the access, then they can't do anything.
There's nothing to be said.
Yeah, we weren't sure of our legal standing really to know whether that was a kind of confident route to take.
Yeah, but what we do know is that all 6 of our deeds would have to be changed, because we all have to pay 1/6 of the maintenance of the road.
Yeah.
So adding another house would be a 7th, and I don't know how that's handled. But yeah, again, it's a legal matter.
Yeah, it isn't actually part of the planning application.
No,
yes.
no.
It will need to be sorted.
Interested in access is nothing to do with planning, as I know.
No.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Okay, anyone have anything else?
Nope.
Right, then we'll start the meeting, if you may. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
So you are all welcome to stay and listen to the deliberations. I have deliberately put that application as the first application that will be considered, so that once it has been considered, if you want to then leave the meeting, you are more than welcome to. But you are also more than welcome to stay and listen to all of it, should you so choose.
There's nothing better to do.
Right, first I'm required to inquire whether anyone present intends to film, photograph and/or record the meeting. As we know, the clerk is doing that for the purpose of the minutes.
Yeah.
Apologies, anyone?
Full house today.
Very good. Declarations of interest.
Nope, none.
Minutes. Everybody happy with the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of March?
Yeah, good. Good minutes.
Matters outstanding from those minutes.
I mentioned that I would be bringing the terms of reference to this meeting. However, they're not due to be renewed until November, so they don't need to come to this meeting. They will be brought to a November meeting. I've also received clarification on the difference between a parish panel and a parish cluster, which I will circulate to the committee via email, save reading it out now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Enforcement. Anybody have anything on enforcement?
Not that I can see. Anything you wish to raise, Marcus?
No, it's just to say that if people are ever challenged over their issues over planning, it might be better not to say anything at the time, but always raise it in the meeting, because it is important that none of us feel intimidated in any form that we wouldn't raise our voices.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody ever wants to reference something through the clerk's office for reporting for enforcement, that's perfectly acceptable. And that goes for residents as well, if that wants to be advised to residents that they can do that. Chris, you have something you'd like to say?
Yeah, can I just clarify that? I know we've had a conversation, Natalie. I've had several conversations with parishioners that have raised concerns about buildings that have miraculously sprung up over this past year during COVID times, where concern has been expressed about planning or lack of planning. And obviously I sit in a position, these are people who know I sit on the planning committee. I know that there's no planning for various things that people have mentioned to me. That they have expressed concerns about not wanting to raise it directly because it tends to concern neighbours, And obviously we've got a concerned bunch of neighbours here, but there are people who have felt rather concerned that they don't want to be identified for raising, potentially being a whistleblower or shopping a neighbour in. Are there means and mechanisms for people in such places? Because I've not felt comfortable advising people one way or the other if they do or don't have a concern. If they know something has been built that's fairly near their property and they're fairly sure it's not got planning, are there means by which they can contact us in a way that doesn't identify them, but it still gives them a chance to, you know, with regard to enforcement, people are doing things, bucking the system.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly we need to know that, but without potentially putting them in a position of disease or unease.
Absolutely.
I think this goes directly to what I've just said, is that us as councillors are the point of contact for the members of the public. If they want to report something to us, you know, we should bring that then to the committee, and then we can make reference to enforcement or Wilden about it. There may be planning on some of these things, you never know, and they might be applications that we've seen before and have been started at some stage. So that would have to be checked first. There is no need for us to raise that objection from other people or bring people into any of these applications. But like I said, it does mean that you or I may get confronted at some stage. This has just happened to me. I actually reported it last week to the clerk for that reason, because it got very, very aggressive. You know, I don't mind that, but I just, for clarity, I felt it right to report it to the clerks and to Di, so that there's a record. Then if anything else happens, that we've got something to go back on.
Absolutely.
But it's up to the councillors to make that decision if someone then says something as to whether or not they bring it forward. In my view, that's our duty.
Okay, thank you, Marcus.
I can also say that should anybody contact the parish office directly, I can report things through to enforcement in Wilden. When I do that, it is always a resident has advised. It's never any names, because, you know, unless somebody specifically says, can you say I've reported this, that's not how we do it in the office.
Okay.
And then I would then report to the next meeting that I had made a report on this on behalf of a resident, but it would be left as a resident. So we try as much as possible, as Marcus says, to use the committee and the clerks to assist residents, I would say, if that helps.
Thank you, Natalie.
That's all right. Okay.
Okay. Sorry, was anyone else saying something then?
No, over to you, Marcus.
WD 2021-0422F, Luberg, Causey Road, Groom Bridge. Description: new house and garage in garden of Luberg, south of private access road. Anyone like to kick off on this?
Can you just tell me where it is? Because I couldn't obviously get it on the, how far Causey Road is it we're talking about?
Shall I explain?
Yes, please.
It's, if you go past the church, past the school, and round the corner, Florence Lane is on your right. And as you start to go down the hill, it's the road on your right. And it's a close there with a number of houses on there.
Thank you.
It doesn't actually have a name on it, does it? It says Causley Road, which is always, I always look for something, but yeah, but that's where it is. And I believe the first house that was built was right at the end, is that right? And then the others were built after that, but yeah, so, and that was some time back.
Would you like me to kick off, or do you want to then, Di? Then as your...
I don't mind. We'll probably say the same things. But
go on, you carry on then.
well, I just wanted to say to all the residents, thank you for all the research that you've done, because it's fantastic what's come in and how clear all the objections are. And for my sense of whether it's a planning that application that should be supported or not, it was really, really helpful, all the objections. But the thing that we have been very strong about this year is about the development boundary, haven't we?
Yeah.
Committee.
Yeah.
We have kept stressing to keep stressing to the applicants and to Wealdon District Council, what do we have a development boundary for if we do not honour it and we do not recognise it? So for me, and that's a thread that goes through all of your objections, is outside the development boundary. The fact that it is an area of outstanding natural beauty, and that's another thing that affects building applications in our parish. The safety and traffic is really important. I didn't know quite so much about the inaccuracies of the application, but misleading information is not acceptable. It is within the zone of influence for Ashdown Forest. And I had difficulties in visualizing the design, which is now, when you were mentioning about the size of it, made me realize it's going to be quite a big building if it was built opposite all of you, and you all have different designs. But in particular for Joe's house, say, it's going to be quite a big building there because it's double-storey. And then the final thing for me was permitted access, which is why I asked you that question. What right of access have they to that piece of land? We have at least a couple of areas in this particular place in Groombridge where you have houses one side of a road, and then over the road or over back lane, say, you've got the other pieces of land that belong to those houses. And this is a case in point. And I feel that if this goes through, then it gives precedent to others in the area who think that they can start making profit out of the building on particular land. It is not absolutely connected to their house. It's not necessarily a planning criteria to refuse it, but it is connected to all the others. That's me, Marcus.
Right. Would anyone else like, should I chip in?
Yep, I think it's you, Marcus. Nobody else is raising their hand.
Right. I too support the comments entirely of the neighbours. And I have to say that this clearly does not apply with policy GD2, which is one that Wealdon District Council like to use, because there is no need for it to be built outside of the development boundary. The presumption in favour of development is wrong, as the application is suggesting, because of the habitats regulations and the AONB, the lack of the local plan of the District Council does not supersede those. And I'm getting really frustrated with the inability of Wealdon District Council to understand their legal obligations. In my view, parish councils should consider, if necessary at some stage, clubbing together and taking the District Council to court if they continue along this route. That will probably make Di faint, but there we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard it all before from you, Mark. No, you're right. They're not acting in residents' best interest.
No. Right, this would not in any way enhance the natural beauty of the landscape. That is one of the criteria that it would have to do. It would look out of keeping with everything outside of the development boundary. There should be a change of use if this is agricultural land and there's been nothing applied for. There's no traffic movement survey, which there should have been. There's no ecology survey, which there should have been.
Slow down.
It's got it written down, I think, Natalie, so you can pass it over.
Sorry.
There's no public transport, which is there should be. So for Wealdon to approve this application, I think is morally wrong as well, because this may well throw up legal ramifications for the other residents, which they would have to battle over access. And I think it should be part of the application that they should show that they have a legal access to that agricultural land before they even put an application in, rather than cause problems. But that's all I have for now. Anybody else?
No, nobody else.
So can I take it that we don't support this one?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Do you want to show of hands?
Do you mean you object?
Object.
Get our wording correct. Yep,
Absolutely.
everybody is showing hands. Everybody, yep. So Whittingham Parish Council objects to this application.
So I hope you've got enough there to trawl through it anyway.
But I do hope you find out more about access, because that's going to be the crunch, I think.
Can I just make a very quick interjection, Natalie?
Yes, Chris.
One, I'd like to commend the fact that the residents have actually taken the time to respond, and in the depth of detail. We've had a number of applications of late, I think, where we've been surprised that there haven't been comments by neighbours. And I think this shows the validity that if there is a notice placed and neighbours are made aware, that neighbours, actually people have a vested interest in where they live, in their local community. And I, for one, am a cynic of the way that the changes have been handled, whereby the presumption is on the neighbours to be aware of what is or isn't happening. And I think this is a perfect example where, when neighbours are made aware, they actually do, they don't sit back and go, oh, we don't really mind. They have a vested interest. And I think this should be reflected. I don't know how we reflect that in the minutes, but I would certainly like that reflected as a means of getting it through to Wealdon District Council. You need to let people know what is happening on their doorsteps. You can't presume that they will know. You have to physically go out your way to let them know, because all too often it's easy for people not to be aware. And I commend the neighbours for actually getting together as a group and coming forward in such a coherent way.
Totally agree with that. And I think I'm hoping that their research will pay off.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Would the residents like to leave us, or do you want to stay? Hang on, you're all muted. Hang on.
I think we'll leave you to it.
Are you sure?
Thank you very much for.
Lovely to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Nice to see you all. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Right, WD 2020-2420 LB. The Old House, Station Road, Groom Bridge. Refurbish and reinstate the sash windows using the existing boxes and sashes and replacing exactly as existing. Any comments, anybody?
I support.
Yeah. It's a building.
Yeah, I think it looks like from the pictures that they've supplied, it looks like they're going to do it properly, and I'm quite happy to support that.
Yeah.
Really good. Right, license applications. WK 2020-14902, Good Things Brewing Company, Rendell Farm, Sandhill Lane, Boar's Head.
Is that in our area?
Yeah,
Well,
it's Boar's Head, isn't it?
I actually couldn't find this. I tried and tried to find this application, and I couldn't find it. I know it's not in the planning. I went to licensing, and I still couldn't find it.
I couldn't either. I couldn't find it.
It's one page of information that states a series of times that implies that's what existing times are, but gives no indication of whether they're times that are being applied for an extension of. So I'm left in a quandary thinking, I don't know actually what this is about.
No, exactly.
This has come up before. This is not the first time, is it?
I think it's different to their previous one.
The brewery.
Where is this one?
One at a time, please.
Sorry, if I may, there are two applications. When you go into the link, there are two applications on there. One appears to be existing, and then, as Chris says, the other one appears to show, actually, it kind of shows the same times, but it says it's awaiting. But there is zero detail in there as to what the application actually is for. If you want me to write back to Tunbridge Wells Licensing and ask for further information for it to go on the next agenda, because we do have until the 18th of May, I am happy to do that, because whilst trying to find information to put in the folder for the councillors, again, I struggled in the same way as all of you. So you're not alone.
Yes,
So
please.
this is a Tunbridge Wells application.
Yeah, it can't. It's
No,
not.
sorry, Wealdon. It was Wealdon. Sorry, it is Wealdon, but I can go back to Wealdon. And
Is it in our parish? Boar's Head is not in our parish, surely.
Yes, it is. Well,
Well, where does it? Where actually in our parish is this place?
Yeah, I think Jill's right.
Right next to Bowles Climbing Centre.
Yes, I don't think
No, well,
that's
it's
not
not.
in
Our parish.
that's not in our parish.
That's not in our parish.
we were sent it from Wealdon as a consultee. So what I will do is I will go back to them. I will ask for clarity as to whether it is in our parish, as to whether we do need to comment, and also if it is, then can we actually have full details of it? Is everybody happy?
Yes, please.
Good idea. Well done.
And then I'll confirm back at the next meeting.
He's in front.
Well done, Jill. You can tell she lives in a town where Sherlock Holmes was.
Is it not?
Right, appeals. I haven't actually been able to find the detail I want to find on this because I can't find all the references. As I said at the last meeting, the third point they clearly haven't done anyway because the site hasn't been cleared. It's been pushed up to one great big pile. So it all does seem rather strange. Maybe Councillor Obar could perhaps give us a heads up in what Wealdon are going to say about this, and then we can perhaps construct something from that. But at the moment, I'm struggling to find what I need to find. I did actually circulate these policies to everybody through the clerk. But
I thought you were going to write a paper for us.
Yeah, but I can't write the paper without knowing what the policies are. And the first 4 pages I have, but it's the SPs and things like that, which we did give round. I did have a file which I left in the office. So it's in there.
I found that file, and all the ones that were in there, I scanned in and emailed over to you.
I think I might. I haven't seen that. I don't think. Then.
Okay, I'll resend it for you tomorrow. Chris,
Okay.
do you want to interject?
Yeah, is it just me? But when I was reading this and I went scurrying around, it says the appellant has appealed against the notice on the following grounds. Ground B, that the breach of control alleged in the enforcement notice has not occurred as a matter of fact. Are they able just to state that without actually then clarifying to what extent they mean? Or do we have to try and second guess what they do or don't mean? I'm nonplussed as a councillor what I'm supposed to respond to.
Because they do state some policy numbers on there. It does not comply with blah, blah, blah. I think it's SP something or other and something else.
I'm looking at the document at the moment and it says the enforcement notice was issued for the following reasons, blah, 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 blah. But the only thing it says in terms of the paragraph is the appellant has appealed against the notice on the following grounds. 1, that the breach of control alleged in the enforcement notice has not occurred as a matter of fact. 2, that the time given to comply within the notice is too short. And then it goes on to say, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be based on written representations. If you want to appeal or make comments, go to such and such. There's nothing else materially in that document that says explicitly why it's being rejected. It just says
I'm struggling.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to do as a councillor in response.
No, this is why I'm struggling to find stuff out. And in my view, Wealdon did it wrong anyway, because they should have served the notice under section 171E of the National Planning Policy Framework, which they chose not to do. And that would have prevented all this rubbish. But there we are.
So if I do as you requested, if I contact Councillor Orbard, I might contact Stacey Robbins as well directly and just ask if they have details.
Councillor Orbard did ask him if he could let us find where we find all these references, and I haven't had anything come through yet.
Okay. And you say
it's really important, both of you, that we do support. You know, we uphold the enforcement.
Notices.
Yeah, it really is. Otherwise, he's going to get away with it.
Okay, well, if you leave with me, then I'll contact Councillor Orbard. I'll contact Stacey, ask for details of those policies, but I will also ask what Wealdon's intended response is, so that you can see sight of that, Marcus.
Yeah,
and then we can make
If
sure
they
something
can-
goes
if
in
they
before
can.
the date.
Because they were given quite a few weeks' time anyway, because
Yes,
we all
they
made that point.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Planning Committee North report from Councillor Tyne, that's me. This is on 5 dwellings on Royal Mars Nursery. Unfortunately, that has gone through.
What? You mean they're letting it?
Yep,
Go ahead.
5 houses, 5 houses.
Do you know that at the moment that it's so busy, apart from the fact the road's cleared, and if they let Millbrook go to housing, there will be no garden centre in Crowborough. I cannot imagine. Money must have talked, is all I can say.
Well, this, as I was saying, Jill, I wasn't able to speak at this application because I wasn't registered, and so I printed off my comments, which Councillor Obbard, I hope, did read out. He said he would do. The Council for Protection of Rural England, they have also said that if this planning application was allowed to go through, it would be a breach of law, and it may well be worth discussing with them their views a little bit further, because I think this is a breach of law. If you can show that a council allows a planning application to go through, which is technically unlawful, it can be challenged, and that is the law. So when this is going to happen, I have no idea. I wouldn't be surprised to see it come back again. With now they're trying to establish the principle of the application, and it be changed. It may not. I think they've taken the view probably that this is looks a little bit like a farmyard in Wilden, and that's why they decided to let it go through.
Have they not seen the place? It's really very vital. It's pretty busy. It provides employment.
That's one of the things that we've actually said, is that we wanted the jobs protected because of the pandemic. It's really important. Perry Hill Nurseries apparently is closing down.
No.
Yeah,
No.
as well. So it's crazy. So
He's screwed.
pardon?
It was a non-sequitur. I spoke out of turn.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't minute it.
Marcus, what are the grounds for providing 5 executive houses, which we do not need when we need employment opportunities?
We haven't had Wilden's response yet to our as a parish council. That will probably be on the next agenda, and they normally quote a response to the parish council on the points that we have raised. So I can bring that to the next meeting. If that, we'll see. I will bring that to the next.
You know, when you think there's no infrastructure to support it, no medical, no educational, no transport, nothing to support it. It's stuck out on a site that was, agricultural, I suppose. I think it's appalling.
Well, there is actually a restriction that it should, if it's not going to be a garden centre, it's meant to return to agricultural land.
Right.
So whether or not there's anyone alive that can enforce that, I don't know. But it is very important that jobs are protected, and they clearly didn't want to do that. And without question, they have tried to mitigate this by making a payment to social housing in another part of the district. And for me, that again is wrong.
Wrong, yes.
So we'll look at it further. I do think that perhaps a little bit of communication with the CPRE might be worthwhile.
It just shows that money talks. You see, they've spent a lot of money on their advisors and things, and basically that is what has won, not common sense.
It's paid off.
If anyone wants to see
about the whole thing,
if anyone wants to see the comments I made, I can email them through to Natalie, and she can put them down if you want.
Yep, I'll have to check those.
they'll be very upset. The people working there will be very upset when they hear this.
I expect they've already heard, probably.
Yeah, I bet they have.
Right. Notice of the publication of the Tunbridge Wells Borough Local Plan.
Just to note.
Sorry?
Just to note it, so noted.
Yeah. To note contact from Helm Projects regarding the plot of land between Station Road, Village Hall and Groombridge Estate on the EAS.
So to advise, we've had contact from another, I think it's the architect in this case, again wanting to do pre-application discussions and the like. So again, I've emailed you all to advise you that have been received, that I've gone back and said our protocol is that they can come to the meeting when it's on the agenda. Should you wish to speak to them, you are well within your rights, but obviously to maintain transparency. But I always like to have it minuted in meetings, again, just for transparency.
Yeah. And Marcus and Natalie, please can look at protecting ourselves by having a policy on how we deal with property developers who are now increasing in numbers, phoning me at home and others, that to try and get some favoured opinion of their particular planning applications. We need a policy that we can, all of us can stick to, so we know that we're singing from the same hymn sheet.
Absolutely, it's on my list of things to bring to.
Yeah, I know it is. I'm not getting at that. Just,
but no, absolutely.
Just saying, publicly in this meeting,
yeah.
And for minuting really, that we do need a policy on how we deal with property developers.
Yeah.
Well, it would not be a bad thing if we were to say to these developers that if they wanted to share their plans with us before the application, they can send them into the office, because then that will give us a little bit of time to start planning, rather than just say point blank, we don't want
no,
to.
this is what I've said. I've not said we don't consult. What I've said is they as a council, you do not wish to speak to them until they have an application. However, if they have any further information prior to putting their application in that they would like disseminated to the planning committee, I can do that. They need to send it through me. So
well,
should we get some design plans or anything, I would circulate them to the planning committee, but then I would advise, however, this is not on an agenda at the moment, so this is just for your reference. If you wish to speak to the developer, it is within your right, but again, please remember, maintain transparency, keep a note, all those sorts of things.
We have to be careful that we don't do for them something different to what we do for any other applicant, and I think that's the bit that I am keen on, that we deal with them in a fair way.
I agree, but it could be useful to us to know what we're going to be dealing with a little bit of extra time. Doesn't mean we don't have to respond back to them, but if we can see what these applications they are, it does give us an opportunity to prepare.
Yeah. So maybe rather than if you have any further information, you can supply it. It would be, if you wish to supply information, the committee will be happy to view it. However, they will not respond until a meeting.
Yeah, that's right. And then it gives us a little bit of a heads up.
Yeah.
Whereabouts actually is this part?
So it's not something we can discuss because it's not on an agenda. But no, it's so
It is on the agenda.
land between Groombridge Place and behind the Village Hall car park bit.
Right, yeah.
It's
right down to the main road.
That little wood.
Yes, right down to the main road.
It's been cleared recently.
Many moons ago, when one of the previous owners was there, I think the first one after Mrs. Newton died, he wanted to make the Victoria pub into a bistro, which I was all for, and have car parking opposite on that bit of land that sticks out by the lay-by. There's a lay-by and a telephone box there.
Yeah.
And that land goes all the way back up to behind the village hall.
Right.
Is that within the planning boundary?
So,
again, we haven't had the plans through yet.
No,
and
we don't know.
This is purely for noting that they've made an approach to us.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. To note further contact from Earlswood Homes.
Again, this is just for the minutes. A parish councillor had been contacted directly by a representative from Earlswood Homes. The councillor advised the representative that all correspondence should come through the clerk for planning, and was very uncomfortable with being contacted directly and being addressed in an informal manner which did not identify the conversation as one of a council nature. The assistant clerk has written to Earlswood Home to remind them of the parish council protocol.
And who are they?
Who was what?
Earlswood Homes.
That's the one down at
Back Lane.
Back Lane.
They're Back Lane. They're the ones that want to put 27 houses opposite the houses over Back Lane.
Ah.
And when he rang me, he said, "This is Joe from so," as if I knew Joe from wherever it was. So I was
good friend. You're a good friend.
yes, a good friend. So of course I was a bit taken aback when I realised he was nothing. He was not a good friend at all.
Yes.
Right. Matters of urgent importance for noting or inclusion on a future agenda. Anybody have anything?
No, can't see anyone. No.
No.
Right, date of the next meeting, Monday, the 19th of April at 7 p.m.
Lovely. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Right, Marcus, I'm going